Hey everyone, and welcome back to another industry report. Game engine tech demos, they're really cool, right? But, they're also kind of hard to understand sometimes. There's a lot of jargon, a lot of claims that seem magical. It's kind of hard to know what it all is. Engineers, like us engineer types, who get excited, but then maybe, you might think that, or is it overblown marketing that's just going to leave you disappointed? Well, today, we're going to give you the scoop on the Unreal Engine 5 reveal and what it actually means. Now, the demo is seriously impressive, and what's even more impressive is what it seems to mean for video game production pipelines. You guys often don't see it because it's behind the scenes stuff, but the engine tools, like what we see here, they are vital. And I'll have a few examples of even from our small experience of how implementing new workflows around new tools can enhance production and at the end of the day mean more content. So today we're going to go over the new tech, we're going to bust some jargon, explain what it sort of means, and I'm also going to explain why you should be excited and why you shouldn't be excited, because as much as the tech here looks really cool, I think that Jeff Keighley's takedown tweet of this IGN article actually sets an unhealthy anti-consumer expectation, and it's very important that those in the know who actually understand these things do try to bring that pro-consumer angle. So that's what we're doing today. Now, do you want physical loot, early access to videos, and the daily briefing? Even like the really cool pins we do? Well, you can check out our Patreon. It's the core of what actually is keeping us going these days. So there's that, and then of course, like and sub for more industry analysis videos. And with that said, well, let's just get going. So, what did you see, okay? Well, this presentation, as a part of Jeff's series of game announcements and things over the summer, was essentially a tech demo of Unreal Engine 5 and an announcement of that engine, plus an extended interview with Epic Games staff. Now, what you actually really saw most of there was the tech demo itself. And what that demo is really the upper limit of what's going to be possible right now with the capabilities of that engine still running on a PS5. Now, in this case, it was 1440p upscaled to 4K. Of course, things like what they did there and NVIDIA's DLSS do show us that actually upscaling can be pretty damn good, and you don't really need native 4K, which is pretty cool. Now, what you saw was not a full game, right? This is something that was designed as a tech demo by the demo team in-house at Epic. That's not dissimilar to, say, Unity's internal demo team, who produce things like Adam, The Heretic, Book of the Dead, and a whole bunch more. Now, what that actually means for how you process this tech demo video is that, the production considerations that would be needed for a full game aren't really needed for just a tech demo. The production is specific to that particular demo. Now, that's not to say that it's lies or anything. It is all real stuff, extremely cool stuff at that, but it is very different to, us being able to say, oh yes, games quite quickly will look like this. And I'd also say that, like, art style-wise, what they actually went for here is a type of look that will look particularly good with stark lighting. Now, the reason why I say that is because you've got a lot of fine detail in the rock geometry and a sort of environment where very stark lighting, like in a sort of canyon setting, is a very natural thing. Now, if, like geometry detail and lighting are the two things that you actually want to show off with your demo, then this kind of is one of the settings you would use for that. It's a bit like how even, say, Terminator 2 had really good looking CGI, but, it had that metal character, and there's a reason why it was done there with a metal character, because the metal reflections were easier to do at the time and look good. That's why Toy Story kind of looked like Toy Story. It's what they could do with the tech of the time. So this is a situation where it's a really cool demo, but you've got to understand it is just a demo. It was produced in that way, and the actual art style of that demo will be tailored towards actually showing off those features in their best light. And then to temper some expectations, Unreal Engine 4's Infiltrator demo, that looked just stunning at the time. But it did take many years for games to actually come out that looked that good. The same will apply here. Unreal Engine 5 ships 2021, so it'll take time for devs to actually get used to how that engine works. It'll take time for the engine's features to, make their way into production workflows of actual studios. And then, of course, the actual games will need to be made. And that will be a years-long process. So, yes, while this is all great, and I can't wait to jump into it, it is really vital that you understand that it will be years before you actually get to play things that look and feel as good as what you saw in this demo. And I mean, yes, it does look like an incredible leap in tech. I think it actually is, but you've got to remember that the bleeding edge of what engineers and demo teams can make is always going to be years ahead of full-blown products with a lot more concerns to keep in mind that'll make it to your machines. So with that said, let's get into the demo. So yes, the demo is absolutely stunning. There's zero shadow of a doubt about that. It's incredible. And that's even with us having to deal with YouTube compression. I mean, imagine getting like a raw 4K for this. I mean, YouTube compression is truly horrible, especially for high detail scenes like this one. So expect this to, funny enough, look even more stunning in person. It is incredible. Now, this demo was made to highlight really two key features of this Unreal Engine release, Nanite and Lumen. So what are they, right? Let's talk about it. First, Nanite. This is the one that I'm the most excited about and the one I think matters the most. Nanite is essentially trying to remove, or at least greatly speed up, part of the game production process. So when an artist makes like a 3D asset, okay, they don't make that asset to the level of detail that you will see in the game. They will make their asset normally at sort of full-ish detail, and then that asset will be optimized. Now that optimization, that involves doing things like, removing polygons, right, where they're not really needed, simplifying the shape, making it less complex, and therefore less taxing on the hardware. Right now, there are tools to assist with optimization, but it is a process that does take quite a bit of time and effort for teams. You can't just basically get a bunch of assets, throw them in, and expect it to work fine. And this means that, well, it adds time and therefore expense to the game production process. And that, of course, is not ideal. So the TLDR of this system is that it is attempting to automatically do the optimization based on the detail that is actually relevant to your eye based on, the position of the camera, basically. In their demo, they used cinema quality assets from Quixel, and they were seemingly able to just throw those assets into the engine and make their scene, and just have Nanite handle the optimization of those assets, basically in a way where, yes, the detail that was not needed was thrown out, but the detail that actually mattered to your eye was kept, and that would be in a sort of real-time basis. So how do they actually do that? How do they work out what matters to your eye? Well, that's a lot more than just testing if a bit of detail is actually visible on screen. They're doing a lot of subpixel stuff. There's probably definitely a lot of tremendously complex math and research into working all that stuff out. Now, how this stuff has tended to work in the past is things like tessellation and LODs. Now, LOD stands for level of detail, and that's essentially, right, just having different quality versions of assets to move between, depending how far away that asset is from the camera. And then tessellation is essentially just changing the amount of mesh subdivision that is going on depending on the distance from the camera. So, the closer you actually say there's a rock, right? The closer you get to the rock, the more the rock's faces will be subdivided, meaning it'll have more polys, which will, make it look more detailed and convincing. But the thing here is that Nanite basically seems to be a novel take on the end goals of those methods that cuts out a whole bunch of the optimization process. So it's not like Nanite is something that you just seem to apply to assets and then, you launch your game. It seems like that's a system that is always running and just analyzing things on a per frame basis, depending on, how far away you are from, say, any given rock. So if you've got this rock, it's really far away, Nanite will take that into account. If you get really close, Nanite will take that into account. And that basically is the point there. And really, this is just incredibly strong, optimization work. This is not some infinite detail thing. You are still limited by the quality of the assets you're putting in, but, cinema quality photogrammetry assets, turns out they look absolutely stunning anyway. Now, in the follow-up interview, Tim Sweeney talked about how the point here isn't just the graphics. It's not just how good it looks. It's actually the development pipeline. That basically tools like this cut down on the amount of work the developers need to do in order to process their assets. And that, of course, saves the time of the artist, which is good for, us as consumers, because that means those artists can spend more time, iterating ideas, making more content, the things that actually matter a little bit more. They can do more stuff with less man hours, and that is just more efficient. Now, for a super simple example, and taking it back to 2D, and this really is simple, it's like using, tools to process your sprites, right? Like in Unity, you could spend loads of time manually making your sprite sheets and doing something there, or you could just use their tool, right, to do all that. If you use their tool, it'll save you time, and that means that you can actually just work on the things that matter more. Another great example from us personally is the Cinemachine camera plugin that was heavily featured in Unity's Atom demo, and it's actually one that started off as an in-house tool for the team, I believe, who made Homeworld Deserts of Karak, so yeah, that's kind of what's up there. But that tool was eventually bought by Unity, and it saved our team probably hundreds of hours. And for an example, back in uni, when I was programming my own render engine in C++ and OpenGL, I remember being stuck with this really finicky camera, right? It was not that well designed because, it was us who made it. But later on, I then remember building my own camera tools in Unity, and that took a whole bunch of time, right? And for me, adding new features there would require programming a whole bunch of new stuff. But then Unity implemented Cinemachine, right? So that would mean that rather than spending my time programming the most basic functionality for a camera, I could spend my time making cool things that actually mattered for how the game would feel at the end. And the reason why I bring this up is to emphasize the difference, I guess, in how developers and customers will see a demo like this, where customers, rightly, will be focused on the end product. But for developers, you can even see how in our very, very simple indie example, yeah, these new tools save you a bunch of time and money. Now, if that is happening for a major AAA studio that is burning through tens and tens of millions, hundreds of millions, you can see how something that maybe just increases the efficiency of a part of their pipeline by X% is going to be a humongous cost saving for them. And that really is a pretty important thing. And of course, that cost saving means, they can spend more time with the content if they choose, the content that you actually care about. And it just so happens that this actually saves time and seems to increase visual quality, which is pretty ridiculously great. And, there's other things like, say, Unity's nested prefabs or scriptable render pipeline. Those are all like fantastic new tools that will save time and money for developers and increase quality. And that's the kind of thing that we really want to see happening in the industry. So what this means, right, is that smaller teams will be able to punch above their weight a little bit better. And this seems perfect for smaller AAA studios like the one recently formed by 2X Respawn staff that basically dedicated itself to, yes, being a AAA studio, but also having a smaller headcount. So, if your core 3D team is like, 15, 20, 30 people, but you're like making some humongous, massive game, then tools like this will be extremely important in actually enabling new types of games for you to be able to make. So there's that. Then there's Lumen, which is Unreal Engine 5's dynamic global illumination tool, and it basically seems like a more user-friendly version of some like more advanced techniques, but just, in a game engine, right, in a usable way. And once again, the point here is to save the artist's time and increase quality, and then of course also increasing quality by saving time so artists can iterate more on things. Now as for the demo, man, it's really cool. It looks just incredible, looks wonderful. I mean, I was particularly impressed with how well it handled the fast motion scene at the end. That is a lot of geometry being loaded in and out, and part of me, was wondering, like, how much was heading into memory there, right? And what was going on? And was the PS5's SSD tech doing much there? Well, according to Tim Sweeney, the new SSD tech was actually very important there. So this isn't a thing like, say, tessellation, right? Where, it's something you're doing in the shader code, where you just go closer, you subdivide more. But what's going on here is like, yeah, it's actually streaming in the detail in a way that is leveraging the storage speed. So this will not look as good on hard drives. Now, Sweeney said that SSDs, especially NVMe ones and PCs, will do just fine, but that the custom PS5 implementation is pretty next level, even compared to a PC. Now, as a PC gamer with a high-end gaming PC, I'm excited by Tim saying that this new console has a thing that I don't, because that actually means there is room to grow for the technology. And that's really good, because it means that all these new cool things that are being enabled will eventually get, it'll trickle around to the rest of the industry. And I mean, that's just exciting. I love technology, and this is it being pushed forward, and that's really cool. But we've got to step back and be realistic here, because my point here has been that as time goes on, right, game engines get more tools, whether it's Lumen or Nanite or Cinemachine or whatever, or ProBuild or, being default in Unity. And that empowers developers to do more with less. And eventually that sort of manifests itself in the games that you get. Eventually. And that's why it's time to, and I don't like to do this because I do like the guy, but it's time to knock Jeff Keighley down a peg. Because, yeah, I think he's been a bit silly. So, IGN did an article a short while ago saying that people should lower their expectations for the next gen. Now, Jeff Keighley quote tweeted that to dunk on them, saying that their article would not age well, only to then quote tweet his quote tweet saying that, indeed, the article did not age well, in light of this tech demo. A tech demo. And really what Jeff's doing there is irresponsible, it is anti-consumer, it sets dangerously high expectations, it is not something someone with his influence should be doing. Now, it's great to see that Jeff is excited about tech. I absolutely am as well. But we need to be realistic about this. The IGN article was talking about how games will look better and will load better on the new hardware, but also how it is just the start of a console life cycle, right? It's the start to have reasonable expectations. Now, I get it, right? Here I am, rushing to defend the checkmark game journos against Jeff, video game man who's a friend of Kojima Keighley. I get that. But it's the right thing to do here, right? The man shouldn't just go around hyping up a tech demo without also emphasizing to people a realistic timeline and being, pro-consumer. Now, yes, what he's doing is great for his corporate partners, but it's also not responsible, right? A lot of people don't understand what game engines actually are. A lot of people aren't programmers. They're not designers. They're not 3D generalists. They're not riggers, right? You get the point. Technical industry terms are just that. If I go to an electrical engineer, I'm not going to understand half of what they're saying. So my point here is that when it comes to this stuff, the people who actually know what's up should have a responsibility to actually communicate those things in a reasonable manner. And Jeff should know that. So to make expectations clear here, games will not look like this at launch, especially not third-party games. Unreal Engine 5 ships in 2021. After the console's launch. It's going to take time for teams to be onboarded and for games to be scoped with its tools in mind. Now, it is true that UE5 will have early access in earlier 2021 and that they will be working with their top partners. That's probably why Hellblade 2 looks really incredible. Could be that. So some games could bring these visuals to you sooner than others, but you get the point here. This is probably what high-end mid-gen or, mid-gen first-party titles, maybe late-gen third-party titles will look like. I guess it's just that thing where, this demo looked like an Uncharted-esque game in terms of its mechanics, right? So to the average viewer, that's going to look like a game that they can get. And then we're seeing, wow, it's running on a PS5, and Jeff Keighley saying the next gen's going to be great. Cool, my games are going to look like this. And, that person's just going to be disappointed. And it's because they've basically been, improperly communicated to, and it's not their fault. So, yeah, we just have to be realistic about this stuff. So yeah, basically that's my point, right? It's just important that you guys all know that you're not going to be playing stuff that looks like this tech demo next Christmas. That's basically what's going on there. Ultimately, remember that Jeff is an events and marketing man, okay? And that the Summer of Games thing that he's doing is a string of marketing events for large corporations, so do just take those things with a grain of salt. Now, to round this off also, Epic are doing some pretty cool things. They are waiving royalties on the first $1 million of game revenue, which is super cool. I think that's fantastic. So that's their engine licensing fees. And they're also opening up Epic online services, which is essentially a bunch of things like friends, achievements, matchmaking that they've made for Fortnite. And that's just going to be a thing that devs can use for free. That is so good. And it's such a pity that the Epic Game Store exclusivity stuff has damaged their image so much that they've, chosen to do that. Because Epic have been incredibly good with their engine. They really have. They do build incredible technology. They have done so for a very long time. And they are key players in pushing our industry forward and, providing competition as well. So yeah, exclusive stuff aside, and sometimes, Fortnite being I guess just a bit culturally missing me out. Epic actually they just do so much good for the industry. Hey, if only BioWare got to keep on using Epic's engines instead of Frostbite, eh? But anyway, that's basically us for this video. There'll be a little bonus after this, but yeah, there's a bunch going on our Patreon. You can get some, the physical metal pins are so cool. So there's that. And if you actually want to take a look in my interest as a once slightly sharp, but now slightly rusty programmer, then check out Sebastian Logue. That is a YouTube channel I think you will love if you're into games tech. He just tackles interesting programming challenges, and I think you'll really enjoy his content. And even if you're not a programmer, you don't really know how that under the hood stuff is working, he actually, especially in his more recent videos, he explains it in I think a manner where you'll get the gist of it, and it's just really interesting. It's really joyous seeing all those, programming adventures, as he calls them, come into life. So I would really, really recommend checking that out. And then finally, I just want to do a little bonus thing, because this was cut from the main part of the script, so I'm, not going to get it edited, but I once had a section in this video called the Mandalorian effect. Now, what that actually was me talking about the behind the scenes of the Mandalorian and how it was pushing forward technology in a very, very novel way, and how that was pretty cool and will probably have large enough effects in the future. So, Mandalorian, you may have thought that was shot on location with how good it looked. No, it was basically just shot on a 360-degree soundstage. It's pretty cool. Right, it's basically a 360 thing around there. You got your actors in the middle, then you're using your cameras, right? And yeah, that's what that is. You see that bit in the background? That's Unreal Engine 4. So if they want to, move a rock a bit to the left while they're actually on set doing that show, yeah, they can just go to the game engine, go into the scene, move the rock. It was so cool seeing what was going on there. And that's another good example of technology pushing forward, allowing for new production processes that, lead to a really strong end product. So I just wanted to, I just thought that was a really cool thing that I wanted to share. Anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. And with that, I will see you next time.